All right, everybody, so I'm back again with another review. This is the Bay Area's only toy reviewer, Carl, and I am here today to review DC's Identity Crisis, Deadshot. Not to be mistaken with the Will Smith version. Well, this is a character, or should I say, this toy in particular is one that you don't see a lot of places. And I think the reason for that is because this is the Michael Turner sculpt. For those of you who aren't familiar, Michael Turner was a phenomenal artist. And if you have a chance to check out some of his work, you should. He unfortunately passed away at a very, very early age. I forget which year, but unfortunately, he is no longer with us. But his work will forever be immortalized in the pages of comic book history as some of the best comic book work ever done. And that is not hyperbole. That is fact. And I am glad that I not only have a representation of Deadshot here, but as a Michael Turner fan, a fan of his work, I am glad to have a piece of his work that will always stay with me. I respect this figure very much because it is a piece of Michael Turner's work. Aesthetically, it does have some issues aesthetically, but all in all, the figure looks good. There's some things that I don't really there's some things that I could do without with the figure, and we'll get into it. But this is one of those figures that falls into that category for me of being a statue. So let's get into it. I don't know if I mentioned this, but Deadshot is one of my favorite. Deadshot's one of my favorite, like, DC vigilante type of heroes. As you can clearly tell, I buy figures based off of my personal like for them and price. But if it's a character that I really enjoy, I will go out of my way to buy them. Deadshot's one of those characters. Not because of the Suicide Squad, but because of the Suicide Squad. Here's my thing on Deadshot. I feel like they unnecessarily changed his race for no reason. I felt like Will Smithed it up a little too much to be Deadshot. So it was kind of like Will Smith. It was kind of like Will Smith as Deadshot, not so much as Floyd Lawton as Deadshot. I felt like the representation of him in Arrow was completely underdeveloped and not at all like his character in the comic book. And it's like, man, they had an opportunity. They've had two opportunities so far in both television and movie adaptations to do justice to this character, and they didn't do it. And that's unfortunate because Deadshot is a interesting character, in my opinion, with a lot of layers. He's not just a hitman. He has, like, I guess you could say, complex motivations as to why he does what he does. It's not because he's a psychopath. It's not because he's crazy. He's not like the Joker. I think the best representation of who Deadshot is I think it's called Assault on Arkham. That's the best representation of Deadshot that I could possibly think of. That is, and there was an episode of Justice League. I think Justice League Unlimited where Deadshot was in it. Those are two perfect representations of Deadshot. But yet, they managed to get it so wrong in the movies, and I don't know why. I'm not saying anything bad about Will Smith. I think he's a great, prolific actor. He's a fantastic actor. But Deadshot, he used too many Willisms when it came to playing Deadshot. And I knew he was going to do just that. Like, I knew it was going to do just that. I didn't hate the Suicide Squad like everybody else did. I figured I am getting a representation of the Suicide Squad, my Suicide Squad, because I'm a DC fan, so I feel some sense of ownership to the characters. So when I see a character that may never 10 years ago have gotten hit a movie, you know, I'm happy to see it. Deadshot 10 years ago would have never gotten a movie. He would have never been in a movie. Enchantress, Harley Quinn, these are characters that would not have gotten movies. And we live in a time and a day and age where these characters can get movies. And, you know, sometimes they're not represented correctly, but as long as it's not like a gross misrepresentation of the character, I'm fine with it. But I'm glad that they at least did something to put the character out there as a character that does exist for fans that can seek him out. But I'm going to get off my soapbox and get into this figure. Okay, so as I've stated before, this figure is a statue. Let's get into the articulation. Okay, so you got an arm that goes around 360, no bicep swivel, single jointed elbow. You have a forearm swivel, and you have a wrist swivel. Head goes around 360. My hands out of the way. Head goes around 360. Tilt there, up to about there, down to about there. Nothing on the waist. No abdominal hinge, no waist swivel. Foot gets you to about there. Single jointed hinge. Calf swivel, and nothing on the foot. It's the same thing with the other side too. Now, articulation aside, the figure, it's reminiscent of how Michael Turner drew. Michael Turner drew very, very highly stylized, very muscular, a lot of characters with a lot of jocularity. So his characters are really, really buff, and they have a lot of muscles. Like a lot of muscles. They're just everywhere. One of the things aesthetically he looks fine. He's got a little Deadshot symbol there. If this will focus, yeah, he's got a little Deadshot symbol there. He's got an eyeball here, which is blue. The paint, I guess, looks good. Paint looks fine. It's nice. You can't tell on the camera, but it's a nice deep shade of red. I guess the paint gets a little wonky here, but it's definitely not a deal breaker. Like I said, I don't really know much about paint. But this is how he looked in the comic. I know it looks kind of weird. It's got that Deathlock type of look as far as like this. Very much reminds me, this area here very much reminds me of Deathlock from Marvel. But other than that, this is how he looked in the comic book. And if you go back and you read Identity Crisis, which was very good. It's only 5 issues, I believe. 5 or 6. I could be wrong. It was a very, very dark story involving the Justice League. If you are easily offended or you don't want to see your heroes portrayed in a particular kind of light, I recommend that you not read it. But I think it's a very good story that really changed how I viewed the DC heroes. And people complain about the movies of how they're so dark, but like if you read Identity Crisis, it's like this. It wasn't any lighter than anything they did in the movies. But I digress. One of the things that I really enjoy about this character is the fact that his wrist guns. He hasn't come with any other accessories. But these wrist guns look great. They look fantastic. They don't look cheap. They don't look like just like blah. Because it would be easy to get these wrong. But I think the wrist guns look fantastic. They actually look like guns. They actually look lethal. They actually look like they could pop somebody. They actually look like viable projectile weapons. And that is something that like I am absolutely okay with. But on the figure themselves, and the hands. Now, if you look at the arm to forearm ratio, like there's a huge discrepancy here. His arms are Mega Man size in comparison to the rest of his. In comparison to the rest of his arm, his forearm is gigantic. It's a big mamma jamma. Look at this thing. It's like you could slap a Mega Buster on this thing. But if you don't mind that, I don't even, to be honest with you, I can't recall if, I guess, from Michael Turner's artwork, the arms were pretty beefy. but I don't remember him being this big. But that's okay. Once again, you know, it's a representation of Deadshot. We've had a few. We've had a few. And when I say a few, I mean we've had like a handful of them. Really, there's Deadshot figures, but not enough to really make a shelf out of them. I guess there's more like Deathstroke figures than anything else. But once again, I'm glad to have a representation of Deadshot, and more importantly, a representation of Deadshot done by Michael Turner. As I've said before, he's a fantastic artist, and he was taken way too soon. So, that being said, if you're a Deadshot fan, you may like this. You may not like it aesthetically because it doesn't really look like any other kind of Deadshot that you're probably used to. But for me, it was a buy because of all the things that I stated. If you're a real big fan, if you're a diehard Deadshot fan, I say yeah. But if you're not, you could probably pass and get one that has more articulation. But that's a review. So, or that's my recommendation. If you're a fan, yeah. If you're even a casual fan, then probably not. If you're a fan of Michael Turner, yeah. If you don't know who Michael Turner is, then probably not. Because you're not going to get any more out of this guy except like a pretty high-end statue. So all that being said, thank you guys for watching. This has been the Bay Area's only toy reviewer, Carl, and I'll see you next time.